The freedom movement in Canada is not dead, and that was apparent over a conference that we just covered. The conference was called Reclaiming Canada. It took place in Victoria over 2 days. Rebel News had our boots on the ground to bring you what's going to be multiple reports on the meat and potatoes that took place during this conference. It was put on by WeUnify. And we're going to speak to Mr. Jeremy Maddock about how that all came together and then show you some highlights. And then soon, like I said, we're going to have sit-down interviews and more reports about things that took place because there was a lot. So make sure you've given us your email at rebelnews.com. And if you want to help chip in to cover the cost for us to bring you these reports, you can do so at rebelfieldreports.com as well. All right, next to me is Mr. Jeremy Maddock, a legal research consultant who you may have seen recently in one of our Rebel News reports because Jeremy spearheaded one of 4 of the legal challenges against British Columbia's vaccine passports. You can check out that report in the description below. We'll have it linked in the written report for this. But today we are talking about the jam-packed event that took place. It's taking place right now called Reclaiming Canada. And it was put together by WeUnify, and you helped with that. So welcome back at Rebel News, first of all.
Thank you, Drea.
Now, tell us a little bit about the vision for this. I got to say, I was quite impressed because I've covered a lot of freedom things, and this is looking a lot different. So what was the vision behind it, and why was it important to do this?
It was really just a handful of people who met, I think, through rallies and through different brainstorming sessions informally. So it's a truly grassroots group. It's nonpartisan. It's not connected to any particular political movement, but our role is just to bring people together and genuinely unify people around these freedom-related issues. So there's certainly no litmus test to be involved. We welcome vaccinated and unvaccinated people, obviously, and we want to talk about repairing our democracy and bringing people back together, dispelling the fear, dispelling the distrust in our society that's arisen from all of this.
Now, you help out with some of the legal parts of WeUnify, and tell us a little bit about the freedom movement and how it's evolved from your guys' perspective in Victoria.
So it's gone over the course of the winter. I think it gathered steam. I guess the peak of some of the rallies and stuff that we were organizing were around the time of the trucker rally. January 29th, we had a major rally down at the legislature with Brian Peckford. March 5th, there was another major rally that attracted around 13,000 people, I'm told. And it was really inspiring to see that crowd, that level of support and level of engagement. And it was March 10th, less than a week after that rally, that British Columbia announced that most of the mandates were being dropped. So I think we had a real impact in that way.
Well, you can find out more about their organization at weunify.ca, but let's look at some of the clips that took place during the 2-day Reclaiming Canada conference now.
328 people on June 23rd, 1985, being blown up over Ireland in a flight from Air India that left Toronto. 295 of those were Canadians. And my good friend, Jim Edwards, who was a federal member of Parliament for Edmonton West, his chief of staff was one of those victims. And we can't have these injustices. And now here we have yet another tragic situation of the last 2 years. We're only going to preserve this great democracy in this land that we all love, our true north, strong and free, when we ignite the citizens of this country. And as Roger has said, this wonderful man, Dr. Hodgkinson, has said, you know, maybe, just maybe, this last 2 years has been a blessing. Maybe it's been an awakening. We're not woke in this room, but we sure as heck are awakened.
So we're talking about solutions. I've been so curious for any of the doctors that are coming out and doing the right thing, Canadian Care Alliance and others. Are you guys doing lawsuits against the college? You know, the ones where they come after your license? Or are you doing a class action lawsuit where all the honest doctors can get together? What are you doing? I'm saying that in a nice way. I know that Dr. Malthouse, no. Dr. Malthouse has treated me. We're friends. I know you've been in a lawsuit, but are you guys doing any big lawsuits? Can you talk about it?
Oh yeah, I can talk about my own personal situation. And you know, my first lawsuit was because of freedom of speech, and that I was criticized by the college, but not really given any punishment because we then appealed their decision that they were trying to curtail my freedom of speech. So that's the lawsuit that's currently that I've got in front of the courts. And then there have been some others where they've come out. You know, often we get complaints. We're being told that we're spreading misinformation, which is going to kill Granny. And but we don't really get the details of that. And in fact, I had one which was passed on from someone who watched the CBC hit piece. So you know, there's nothing coming our way on the other side that cannot be combated with real information that comes from research. But we're kind of thinking how to go about it, because it's very expensive. It involves the colleges and so forth. So it's not so straightforward as just saying, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to sue the pants off you.
Has anyone lost their license of all the honest doctors? You hear about them saying we're going to take away your license. Has it actually happened?
I don't think anyone. We've had licenses suspended,
okay,
certainly, and we've had other things. You know, for doctors being under investigation is very stressful, and I think that's what stops a lot of doctors from stepping up and speaking out.
Thank you very much, Roger. I'm very pleased to be with you. It's too bad and it's sad that I cannot be with you in person. As you know, I am a victim of Trudeau's government. I cannot fly because I'm not vaccinated, like a lot of you in that room today. But before speaking about the future, I want to speak a little bit about the past 2 years. And I want to congratulate every one of you in that room. You know, the battle that we did that together the last 2 years. It was a battle to change the public opinion. And we won that battle because almost all the mandates are not in force anymore, except the one that Trudeau is still imposing right now. But, you know, it was a battle to change the public opinion, because we know that the establishment traditional politicians are doing politics based on survey and polling and not based on conviction or our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So they were very efficient in the beginning of the pandemic with the propaganda and the ad in the newspaper and everywhere across the country, radio station, TV, and fear was very efficient. And because of that, and also you remember that Trudeau bought the media, CBC, and also he created a special fund of $600 million. So he had the media with him. And with the media, with the fear, with the propaganda, they were able to change the public opinion. And they had 60 to 70% of the population that agreed with these draconian measures. And that's why you didn't have any opposition in Parliament in Ottawa and in every province, because these traditional politicians just want to be in power and they want to be on the right side of the poll. And so if there's 60% of the population who agree with the measures, they won't speak against that.
The convoy. And what was said was that this was anarchy, or words to that effect. Now, how can he sit in on a case when he's already prejudged the matter? And so a prominent group of about a dozen or so lawyers signed an official complaint to the Judicial Council for discipline, if not removal, of Chief Justice Wagner. The head of the judicial inquiry on the complaint is Chief Justice Wagner. That is set out by law, and it's not a joke. This is why we may need a second commission of inquiry. Now, the third thing I wish to say is this. There is a real need for answers that we're not getting from government. I illustrate this point with the notorious failure of question period in all the legislatures and in Parliament. To make a long story short, it's impossible for Canadians to have confidence in a government that undermines democracy and the rule of law by repeatedly being evasive and refusing to answer questions that are designed to hold the executive branch accountable to Parliament and to the people of Canada. The preservation of democracy requires elections to extinguish this arrogant contempt of the Canadian electorate who demand and deserve accountability and responsive answers. My recommendation is that the Governor General, which has the power to dissolve Parliament and to call election, should exercise that power independent of the Prime Minister. And when the Prime Minister refuses to answer questions about conflict of interest, when the Prime Minister refuses to answer questions about ethics, refuses to answer questions about the convoy, that behavior is contempt, not only of the public, but Parliament. And the remedy is a new election.
An independent public national inquiry to examine whether government, federal, provincial and territorial, mandates and lockdowns were necessary and constitutional. People in government and their agencies who are found guilty of breaking the law after due process must be brought to justice. Such an inquiry cannot be led by the governments of Canada, who are the major subjects of the inquiry. Instead, a citizens group must be formed for that purpose. And these governments and their agencies must open their books and release to the inquiry and to all the public all the necessary relevant information concerning their actions during the pandemic. We talk accountability. This is accountability.
Like I said, that was just one of many reports to come about the Reclaiming Canada conference. So if you want to know what they believe is the right way to reclaim freedom and rights in Canada, you want to make sure you're following us at rebelnews.com. And also, if you want to chip in to help cover our expenses, you can do so at rebelfieldreports.com.